Story time about how my dad shot my abusive husband. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My husband and I met through some friends, but I never thought he was attractive or even interesting. But then I heard from other people that he would comment about how beautiful I was, and that's when he started asking me out. I kept saying no because I just didn't like him. But then he reached out to my cousin and asked her to convince me to go out with him. My cousin and I are super close and I always trusted her judgment. So I finally said yes to one date. I was in nursing school at the time, so I was really busy and actually really broke. So he paid for dinner and he even offered to help me pay my bills. I couldn't believe he was being so generous, but obviously at the time I didn't realize that he was just trying to control me. Here's where it gets really scary. 2 months later, he actually took me out on a date. And it was our wedding. That's right, he planned a whole wedding, got my parents' permission and everything. I show up to this date thinking we were gonna have dinner, but then he put me in a freaking wedding gown. I felt like I had no other choice, so I said yes. 2 weeks after we got married, he completely changed. He was totally abusive. He started brainwashing me to not even see my family. Part 2 is up. After my husband forced me into marrying him, he became a totally different person. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. He started brainwashing me into believing that I could never leave him, that no one could ever love me, and he even started convincing me that my family hated me. It was just his way to keep me away from them. But my entire family had enough, especially my dad. My dad was a cop and he had dealt with a lot of abusive husbands in the past. So one night my dad comes to our very big, very beautiful house and he asked my husband to let me go. That's when my husband grabs a bat from behind the door and starts swinging at my dad. My dad, being a cop, had his gun on him. He pulled it out and shot him in the you-know-what. That's when he looked at me and said that he would kill me if I left. Part 3 is up. My dad pulls his gun out and shoots my husband in the you-know-what. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My husband falls to the ground, looks at me and says that if I leave the house, he would kill me. But of course, I ran straight to my dad and we went home. My dad called an ambulance and they went to get my husband. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks. I never went to visit him once. I was so grateful to my dad for getting me out of that abusive relationship. But guess what? The abuse hasn't ended. My husband is suing me for abandonment. He's got his lawyers visiting me every single day, harassing me. I've noticed one man who keeps following me, and my car was broken into 2 nights ago. There's so much more. I think I'll have to make a follow-up story time. My dad is doing everything possible to get the divorce, and we're also trying to get a restraining order against my husband. I actually recently found pictures that I had taken of my bruises, so now I've got proof. Should I do a part 4? Story time about how I tricked my ex into paying for all of my plastic surgery. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. I repeat, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. A little backstory. I met my ex at the gym. He was actually my personal trainer. He was in really good shape while I was definitely out of shape and pudgy. He motivated me to work out and lose weight. I quickly realized I had a major crush on him. So after a full year of training, I had lost about 30 pounds. I felt really good about myself. So I mustered up the courage to tell him that I had a crush on him. But unfortunately, he told me that he never dated clients. Then he said that we still had a lot of work to do on my body anyway. It was a punch to the gut. I decided I needed to get a new trainer because of what he said and because obviously I had a crush on him. Well, it just so happens that I landed in my dream job. I started making a lot of money. He followed me on Instagram and he started noticing it. I moved into a better apartment and I got a new car. I also got lip filler and cheek filler. That's when he calls me up and asks me on a date. I said yes right away. You'll never guess what happened next. Part 2 is up. Once he saw I had money, he asked me out on a date. I had been crushing on him for more than a year, so I said yes. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. We set up a date and it went really well. He paid for dinner and congratulated me on all my success. After that, we started hanging out almost every single weekend, and about a month later, he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I was so happy. I had my dream job, I lost weight, I looked damn good, and I got the perfect boyfriend too. But this is when he got toxic. He would start to criticize little things about my body. For example, I had a little bit of fat on my stomach, and he would point that out. Or he would point out that my boobs weren't that big. And like I said in part 1, he was a trainer, so he had abs. Made me feel self-conscious, so I never got undressed in front of him. Then one day he suggested I go to a plastic surgeon. He even looked up a few in my area. Part 3 is my boyfriend actually suggested I go to a plastic surgeon because he didn't like that my boobs were small and that I had a bit of a tummy. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I got extremely offended, of course. Then he acted like what he said was completely normal. I told him that I love my body as it was. Then he said that I still needed to do a lot of work on it. Then he insinuated that his girlfriend needs to look just as good as he does. In other words, he thought he was better looking than me. So I thought to myself, okay, sure, let's go to this plastic surgeon. But I was gonna find a way to make him pay for it. You see, at this point I was paying for a lot. I would pay for our dates and dinners. He would even sometimes ask me for gas money. We went to the plastic surgeon and I decided to get my boobies done. So I told my boyfriend that all my money was tied up in investments, that I needed him to loan me the money. He said, yeah, sure, and he transferred the money. I got the plastic surgery and it looks amazing. I've since moved to another city, blocked him on my phone and on social media, and he hasn't been able to find me. I mean, I think he kind of deserved it, but I also feel guilty. What should I do? Story time about how I faked a pregnancy to get my boyfriend to marry me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Okay, this is super embarrassing and I did get in trouble for this, so strap in. He's now my ex because of course he dumped my ass. He and I met in college and we were totally in love. Like, we spent every single day together and we moved in together really fast. We even stopped going to parties just to be together. About 3 years into the relationship, I told him that I definitely wanted to get married. He told me that he just wasn't ready. Then everything got really bad. He became really cold towards me. When I confronted him about it, he was honest and he told me that he just didn't love me anymore. Then he moved out and literally cut me out of his life. Even his parents told me to leave him alone. So there's a pregnant girl working at the coffee shop I usually go to. I paid her $600 to pee on a pregnancy stick. I knew this was the only way I was going to get him to marry me. I show up to my boyfriend's house, but guess who's there? He's with his ex-girlfriend sitting on the couch watching a movie. That's when I willed myself to cry and I show him the pregnancy test. Part 2 is up. So I show my ex the fake pregnancy test so that he can marry me. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Mind you, his ex is sitting on the couch waiting for him to come back so that they can finish watching their stupid movie. And when he saw that the test was positive, he started to cry. I told him that we had to talk, and he told his ex to leave. Then he tells his parents to come into the room, and his mom also started to cry when she saw the pregnancy test. I couldn't really tell if they were happy tears or if they were like, oh no tears. That's when I told him that I fully expected him to ask me to marry him. I even told him that I was 2 months along so we could start planning the wedding. That's when he told his parents that I was right. Then he asked me to marry him. I knew that I got what I wanted, but I had no idea how I was going to fake this pregnancy. A few days later, he moved back into our apartment. He started painting the guest room so that it could be the nursery. But here's the worst part. A month later, I was still not able to get pregnant. I didn't know what to do, so I started eating a lot of food to fake the pregnancy bump. I would eat McDonald's for breakfast and Taco Bell for dinner. Part 3 is... In order to fake the pregnancy, I had to gain weight. So I started eating tons of food. I would have pizza every other day. I ate 2 pints of ice cream a day. And every time I passed by a fast food place, I would pick up something to eat. I was gaining a little bit of weight, so people believed me when I said I was pregnant. Finally, the wedding came around. I was so relieved once we were married because I knew I had to eventually go to the doctor. And I had decided that once the doctor said that I wasn't pregnant, I would put on a show and pretend that I just lost the baby. Well, when it finally happened, my husband straight up asked me if I made it all up. And I told him yes. It literally took him 1 hour to move out of the apartment. He went straight to get a restraining order, and my parents sent me to a psychiatrist. But you see, we're still married. He hasn't filed for divorce, so I think I should reach out to him. I know he and I will end up together. What do you guys think? Story time about how I caught my husband with his best friend in bed. Who, by the way, is a guy. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I knew that my husband was bi before we got married, and it never bothered me. In fact, that's how we met. A few years ago, I was dating this guy, and we had an open relationship, and he would tell me about this other guy that he was hooking up with. Well, he introduced me to his male friend, and we actually ended up hooking up. A few months later, we became boyfriend and girlfriend, and a few years later, we got married. So I always knew my husband was bi. Here's when his best friend comes into the picture. Let's call him Kenny. Kenny's been best friends with my husband for over 7 years. They've known each other longer than I've known my husband. But get this, Kenny is also married. Kenny would sometimes sleep over our house when it was really late. A few weeks ago, he slept over. I went to bed, but at 4 in the morning, I wake up and my husband is not in bed. So I go looking for him and I hear a noise coming from the guest bedroom. I walk in and see that my husband is tied to the bed. Guess what they were doing? Part 2 is up. I see my husband is tied to the bed and his best friend Kenny is doing things to him. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. I was so shocked I ran to the toilet and vomited. Kenny went straight to put on his clothes, but my husband was still tied to the damn bed. Before Kenny could start untying him, I straight up started punching my husband in the face, the chest, the neck. I felt uncontrollable rage for the first time. This whole time that I thought they were just best friends, my husband and his male best friend Kenny are hooking up behind my back. Here's when I really started to lose control. Kenny tried to pull me off of my husband, so I noticed that they had a bunch of candles lit. So I grabbed 2 candles and threw them straight at Kenny's head. One of them missed, but the other one got him. So Kenny grabbed his phone and started calling 911. Mind you, my husband is still tied to the bed at this point. Then I grabbed another candle and poured all the hot wax on top of my husband's you-know-what. Part 3 is up. My husband is tied to the bed, so I grabbed the candle and poured all the hot wax on his you-know-what. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Kenny has already called the police at this point and they are on their way. I'm still in blind rage and my husband is still tied to the bed. That's when Kenny grabs me by the hair, takes me to the bathroom and throws me into the tub. I landed on my arm and actually broke it. He goes to untie my husband and that's when the police knock on the door. Well, guess what? They arrested me for assaulting my husband. I sat in a jail cell for 6 hours before my husband came to bail me out. Of course, he apologized and said he would drop the charges. Apparently, Kenny asked his wife for a divorce and is demanding that my husband and I get divorced because he wants to be with my husband. My husband basically said that he doesn't know who to choose, me or him. I really do love my husband. What do I do?
Am I wrong for telling a social worker the real reason my sister wants a foster kid? I, 28 female, have a sister who's 36. For the sake of the story, I'll just call her Jane. Jane is married to Bob and they have 2 kids, boy and a girl. My niece and nephew are wonderful kids and no trouble at all. They fight as siblings do, but nothing big. I love them. Now, for about 2 years, I did live with my sister. It was a miserable time that really affected our relationship. She saw me as free labor, money, and babysitting. Even when I managed to get a small part-time job, she demanded I hand over nearly half my pay or get out. It was hell as she took complete advantage of me. I moved out as soon as I could, and we have little to no contact outside of family gatherings. Now, after I moved out, she started complaining how she has no help with the kids and never gets a break. I babysit sometimes, but I have made it clear just because I'm off work doesn't mean I want an 8-hour day with my niece and nephew. Anyway, she started talking about how she wanted to foster a kid. Not a kid, but a teenager. I pressed her for more info on this, and she said she wants to adopt a teenager so she has a live-in babysitter for her kids. This is her logic. I want a kid around 16 or 17, someone who may have been in the system for a while. They can share a bedroom with your nephew, she only has a 3-bedroom house, or sleep in the garage. They can help me with housework, chores, cook, and help me with my business. She bakes and sells cookies on the side. Also, babysit the kids so me and Bob can go out sometimes or have some time alone. They'll be so grateful for a home and won't complain. I won't have to pay them at all. And when they turn 18, I can just sign up for another foster kid. A teenager will be so much easier than a little kid, and they will be grateful just to have a roof, food, siblings if they have been separated from their real ones, and clothes. What the hell? How do people think of this shit? What am I reading? I was horrified, told her it was a horrible idea, but she didn't listen to me. She went on with it anyways. About a month ago, a social worker showed up at my apartment to ask me some questions about my sister. She had put me down as a character witness or something like that. I immediately told the social worker why my sister wanted to foster a kid and how she treated me when I lived with her. The lady then thanked me. My sister called crying, saying that she wouldn't be considered for any adoptions or fosters. The social worker told her that they felt her home and her weren't a good fit. She asked if I said anything, and I told the truth. She went off on me, hung up, and we haven't spoken since. A couple family members are on her side. They think foster kids are effing dogs or something and would be so happy just to have a roof and would gladly do all the housework. So am I wrong here? What? Ugh. Don't have kids if you can't take care of them. It's not, you don't have to have kids if you have, what? People are fucking. Am I wrong for rejecting someone's request to propose at my wedding? My husband and I got married last month and had a small and wonderful wedding. 2 weeks before the wedding, my best friend / maid of honor's boyfriend asked if it would be okay to propose during my reception. I first told him how thrilled I was that he was going to propose to my best friend and how excited she would be, but I really wasn't comfortable with him proposing during the wedding, at least as a public thing. He seemed totally shocked that I said no, which I can understand. He said that weddings are supposed to be about celebrating love and that as her best friend, I should want them to finally be engaged after 11 years together. I absolutely want that for them, but I just didn't understand why it needed to happen during the 5.5-hour window of my ceremony / cocktail hour / reception. I was very apologetic and offered to help however I could with the proposal on any other day, but he was very clearly not happy with me. I haven't heard from my maid of honor since the wedding, which is probably the longest we've ever gone without talking. I had tried several times to get in touch with her and let her know at one point that I had something of hers she had lost at the wedding. Never got a response. I texted the other day saying I was going to drop the lost item off at her house so she'd have it, and she finally responded. Apparently, during the after party at the hotel bar, my maid of honor's boyfriend got very drunk and told her that she would have been engaged that night if I hadn't ruined his plan. She says she isn't exactly mad at me, but she feels like her future engagement is ruined and that I denied her a chance at happiness. Whoa, what? Okay. Another mutual friend who knows what's going on says she doesn't. Another mutual friend who knows what's going on says she doesn't love that he planned to propose at the wedding, but thinks I was the asshole ultimately for saying no. Oh no, hell no! What the f? Get out of here trying to propose at my wedding. It's fine if people say yes to it. More power to you. But if I say no, I might. What? The entitlement of some people. Get the hell out of here.
My boyfriend refuses to divorce his ex unless I pay for it. Is this relationship worth saving? I am a 39-year-old female and my boyfriend is a 33-year-old male. We've been together for 5 years. There are a few things I can't handle and have voiced my opinion on, but I get called crazy or just ignored. Communication for us has been minimal for the past 2 years or so. He is still married to his ex. While he has promised a divorce, he refuses to get one now unless I pay for it. He and I are intimate 3 times a month and only when he wants to. He doesn't compliment or acknowledge any of my social media posts or anything I send directly to him, like pics. What has recently made me upset and is my last straw is that he decided he wanted to take some time off for his birthday. I'm not mad that he wants to go and do something alone for his birthday. I'm more upset that he didn't ask if I was doing anything for him, which I always do, and didn't ask if I wanted to go. I'm mad that he can take time off for his own birthday, but can't take off time for my birthday or our anniversary. The past 2 years, he has done nothing for both my birthday or anniversary. Am I wrong for being mad? I, 30 male, pissed my wife, 27 female off, and now she wants me to do everything. To begin, when I met my now wife, she had about $9,000 in credit card debt. She grew up in poverty, got her first credit card, and got into financial trouble with it. She told me about it pretty early on in the serious phase of our relationship, and even told me about her plan to fix it. Showed me her budget and had a time frame. To her credit, she did it. That was 5 years ago. We're now married with twins. She's a stay-at-home mom, but receives about $1,000 per month in VA disability and cleans houses part-time while our kids are in school. The $1,000 goes entirely to our mortgage, plus some of the money that she makes cleaning houses because she likes to put extra on the principal. So she has her own spending money. We do have one credit card, mine, of which she is an authorized user. I do stay vigilant about the card because I guess I never really let myself trust her with money. On to the problem. I noticed earlier this week, after years of good financial decisions and fiscal responsibility on her part, that the credit card seemed higher than normal. My wife hadn't mentioned anything, and I hadn't seen anything expensive coming into the house. So I was shocked to see charges from GameStop, grocery store charges, outside of her normal shopping trip, a salon, Walmart, a movie theater, and Amazon. It came out to about $600, and I immediately realized she had a relapse. I confronted her in the kitchen while she was putting together something for our kids' class, and I admit I laid right into her. She agreed. She had messed up, would return everything, and give me back the credit card. I thought this was an admission of guilt, which made me even more angry, and demanded to know how much she spent on these Halloween goodie bags she was putting together because it looked expensive, and I didn't see why we would spend so much on first graders. And she said only $15 since she got everything at the dollar store. She told me that everything had been returned, and now I was in charge of the birthday party, the birthday presents, and the Christmas shopping, and the class Christmas party contribution, since I didn't trust her to do those things. Turns out all those charges were for the kids' birthday and birthday party at the movie theater. Christmas shopping she had actually finished for everyone we usually buy for, and even the salon charges were for our son's haircuts. Now she's returned everything, and even has told me grocery shopping is also my job now. I can't handle all that. I didn't even remember it was my kids' birthday soon. How do I fix this so we can go back to how it was? I've already groveled, and she just says I apparently have 5 years of groveling to do if all I've been waiting for is the other shoe to drop, when she's been nothing but exemplary when it comes to finances in all this time. Help, please. Am I the asshole for causing drama during an important football game? Last weekend, I, female 27, ended feeling a wee bit poorly with what turned out to be appendicitis. We were away for the weekend with my partner, male 39, so I had surgery at a hospital 3 to 4 hours away from home. I had a small complication during surgery, so I had to stay until Wednesday, yesterday. But my partner returned to work on Monday, but he came back to pick me up. The timing was bad because there was an important football game yesterday, and it was really important for my partner to watch it. I am not English, so I don't quite get the importance, but it's a big deal for him. I wanted to make sure he'd see the game. I suggested booking a room near the hospital so we wouldn't miss it due to the drive, but he wanted to see the game at a friend's place. He said he'd make it. While we were waiting to get me discharged, he was getting agitated because it was taking so long. He had to wait outside, so he was in the car the whole time because of restrictions at the hospital. After a couple of hours, he sent me a text that he had to leave or he'd miss the game. I begged him not to leave and reminded I could book a hotel. But he left without me and luckily made it on time to see the start of the game. He said he'd come pick me up tomorrow instead. The hospital wouldn't let me stay over another night or leave alone. Luckily, one of my friends came to get me in the end. She didn't get to the hospital until late, and we got back to London around 2 a.m. The whole time I was trying to call and text my partner, but he only said we could talk about it today. The whole evening I was texting and calling my partner, ever since the moment he left me at the hospital. He only sent me one WhatsApp back that said he'd pick me up later but wanted to see the game. When I got home in the night, he was so angry at me. He said I was the most selfish asshole for completely ringing and texting him during the game, and that I ruined the game for him and embarrassed him in front of his friends.
I hate him.
He said he cannot even look at me and that I bring so much drama with me, it's humiliating to him. I feel at a complete loss. Bye! Bye! I think I might be the asshole for not understanding the cultural significance of football and asking my boyfriend to do a completely unreasonable drive to pick me up. But, on the other hand, we could have watched the game in a hotel room and I wouldn't have been left alone in a hospital in another country. Am I the asshole?
No.
No, and you need to fucking run.
Literally.
A gaslighting bitch.
Oh my God. It is so concerning to me. I don't want to say it because...
Say it. Say it.
People are going to be mad about this. But I just think it's so concerning. Sports are fun and great and awesome. But when it gets to the point where you are putting that above actual like human things, it's so concerning. You are literally to a logo, to a brand name. You are putting like the people that you love in the back burner to a logo.
I never really saw you coming until you turned me around. I used to think I was nothing, but look at this love we found. So give me your hand like you took mine. No, I don't ever wanna see you cry. Oh yeah, no more tears. Oh yeah, no more tears. Take that chance, we'll be fine. No, I don't ever wanna see.
My husband, 64, has 2 kids, a daughter, 35, and a son, 31. His daughter lives in a different country but is low contact with us, so we have very little to do with her. Their birth mother died when they were both in their teens. His son lives only 15 minutes away and we see him from time to time. He's not a bad guy, just very different from my husband and me. I also have a son of my own, 41. He's a very successful stockbroker, while my husband's son is a moderately successful photographer. My son is married with 3 kids, while my husband's son is still single. This usually causes problems over Christmas, as I like to spend it with my son and his family, and I expect my husband to join. We invited his son along 4 years ago, and even though he did try to fit in, it just wasn't a good fit. He thought it appropriate to show up in jeans and a t-shirt. I was so embarrassed I could hardly look anyone in the eyes. Since that year, we've decided not to invite him again. This never seemed to be an issue until this year. We showed up at his home early morning. We had plans to go over to my son's house at around 11, so we didn't really have time, so we just dropped off a gift for him and left. He bought nothing for us. Later that day, my husband texted him to ask if he had enjoyed the rest of Christmas, to which he replied, "Oh, right, that's what today was. Thanks for the chocolate and 3-minute visit." My husband was very upset by this, but I was outraged. I wanted to contact him and put him in his place, but my husband took my phone away and told me to let it go. It's been 2 days now. He and my husband are talking again, and both seem to have just moved past it. But I'm still mad. I don't believe that it's my fault that he is less successful than my family and just can't fit in with us. So, am I the idiot for not inviting my husband's son to Christmas? I think I might slightly be, because my husband wasn't super rich until he married me, so his son was raised in a lower class environment, which obviously he can't help, but at the same time, it's not my fault either. I feel very conflicted. I just thought I would add this. No, I did not tell him about the dress code, but he has spent enough time with his father and me that he should have known better. The jeans were also ill-fitting and did not look neat at all. Also, that Christmas didn't take place at my house but at my son's, and he was also quite embarrassed. 1, because this wasn't setting a good example to his young children, and 2, he had other guests over as well, and this did not make a favourable impression on them. You are the idiot. You knew what you were doing with that visit. It was a drive-by, so we couldn't say you totally ignored him, but it was literally the least effort you could possibly expend and say you saw him on Christmas. If you're going to pull bull like that, don't be surprised when people call you on it. And your husband is a joke as well to let you treat his kid like that. You are the idiot. The only thing you've mentioned that he did wrong was wearing jeans to a family gathering. You sound like a shallow, snobby person who cares more about appearances than family. Raised as you were, you're well aware that a good hostess puts her guests at ease, and you failed at that job. Then blamed your guest, who was also family. Money does not equal class, and I suspect you have one, while he has the other. Oh no, she also mentions how her son is more successful than him. She cares about money and appearance. She's the Grinch who stole Christmas. Well, no wonder his daughter went no contact. Guess who's going to go no contact soon? You are the idiot and a judgmental person. How do you even start describing people based on their level of success? How horrible. My teen female class missed out on our school trip this year because of the global situation. It happens, but they promised us next year we would get a makeup trip. I started saving when this was confirmed back in April. I don't have it all saved, but I have a good portion started. My parents both lost their jobs due to the global situation. They're currently in other jobs but making far less. This means less money than before. Pair that with already struggling to afford 5 kids, and the fact I was always made to take the hits so my siblings wouldn't go without, and well, it's now a reality that they can't afford 4 school trips. My parents found out I'd saved for mine and told me if I shared it all out between my younger siblings, they could all go on their trips and I would be a good sister. I said no, that they could figure something out or they could teach them to take one for the team like I always had to. My sister heard everything, told the others, and now everyone in the house is saying I should give it to my siblings and that I'm mean and selfish for not. This will be my first class trip since I was 7. They prioritised affording my siblings over mine. I get to go because I work now and can save for it myself. I know it hurt my siblings' feelings, but I feel like I deserve something good too. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. What kind of lessons are your parents trying to teach you here? That if you work hard and save your money patiently for something you want, you can, give it to someone else? The global situation was hard on everyone, and your parents are in a bind, but taking your money isn't the answer. I smell parentification and it's pungent. OP, you saved your money. It's not your job to spend your money on your siblings. You've had to sacrifice plenty in the name of being a good older sibling, and that's not what being a good sibling means. Being a good older sibling means being kind to your younger siblings, not sacrificing everything for their happiness. Your happiness matters just as much as theirs. Keep your money and go on your trip. Your needs and wants are equally important, especially because you worked hard to earn this trip and earn your own money. My friend Mary and I have known each other since we were children. We've grown apart over the past few years, but she still considers me important enough to make me a bridesmaid. Her wedding is set to be in 3 weeks. One reason I distanced myself from her was her treatment of my relationship. My boyfriend Jack and I have been together for 3.5 years. He's a wonderful person, and there's no doubt in my mind that this is the man I want to marry, but Mary is under the impression that Jack is too good for me. Jack comes from a very wealthy background. His parents are indeed very rich. He was practically guaranteed a lavish life from the moment he left the womb. This is in stark contrast to my childhood. I grew up in a low-income neighborhood, often wondering where my next meal was or how I was going to help pay the bills at a young age, etc. Nevertheless, I'm grateful and proud for where I am today. Jack is considered conventionally attractive, always looking like he should be on some magazine or billboard somewhere. Jack's good looks and background have led Mary to believe that Jack deserves better than me, as according to her, there's no way I could have pulled someone so attractive and rich. It's pretty disheartening to hear those things constantly, and it does take a toll on you and the friendship. However, she's quite polite and respectful whenever Jack is around, never once making those comments. Eventually, the comments stopped. Mary invited me for lunch with her fiancé and his friend Gary. From the moment I arrived, Mary and her fiancé were consumed in their conversation, paying no attention to the both of us. It was okay, as Gary seemed to be a great lad with great chat. He asked me why I was single, and I told him that I was in a happy, committed relationship. He was very taken aback by my answer. He told me that Mary had set up a blind double date of sorts for the both of us. Although I was slightly baffled and slightly angry, I didn't want to be confrontational at lunch, especially in public, so I just carried on with the lunch. Luckily, Gary wasn't upset and ended up making a few jokes about the whole ordeal. I called Mary later on in the day and asked her many questions about why she thought it was okay to do that. At first, she tried to deny it, but then she tried to justify it by saying that Gary is a man who's more in my league. Since he was also a groomsman, we needed to get to know each other better. I was shocked by her bluntness, so I just told her that I didn't want to be her bridesmaid anymore. Granted, it was a pretty impulsive decision, but I still stand by it. Mary didn't take it well, trying to apologize and saying it was a mistake. It's been a few days and her fiancé has been texting me, asking me to suck it up for the wedding. I feel petty and conflicted right now. Not the idiot, what the heck? Is she jealous or something, because it strongly sounds like it? She not only set you up, but she also hurt Gary over this. This is absolutely terrible, and if this is some weird perfect upstaging wedding ploy, she needs to stop now. It's entirely understandable to distance yourself from someone who gaslights and manipulates you like this. She has been actively insulting you. Like, it wasn't because she was worried about you. She thinks you aren't good enough and don't deserve him. This is absolutely disgusting to say to someone you consider a friend, and it might hurt your relationship if you have this going on. She was willing to lie to one man. What if she takes that further? Run and don't look back. This woman is vile. She sounds kind of jealous, to be honest, but this conniving behavior is insane. Be sure to block any more flying monkeys coming your way about, just suck it up for the wedding. Also, it would be a great time to advise Gary that his good friends, Mary and her fiancé, set you two up because Mary believes your current boyfriend is out of your league, too handsome, too rich, and too successful. So fixing up the two of you is because Gary is seen as lacking in looks, wealth, and success compared to your current boyfriend. He might wish to review just how good of friends he is with Mary and fiancé. To me, this is a classic example of someone who cannot stand to see your success. She's afraid your station in life will rise above her, so she tried to derail you. She probably even sees you as a bit beneath her. I can only surmise this is because she openly insults you without a second thought. In my opinion, it's time to move on from this childhood friendship. I think she's given you ample reason to do so. I just feel bad for Gary and the groom. My wife and I were going to a business dinner yesterday, so I bought my wife a really nice evening gown of her choice to wear to the dinner. However, when she came down as we were about to leave, she was wearing a plain black t-shirt and torn jeans. I asked if she could wear a bit more formal clothing for the occasion, as my boss would be there. She said she's comfortable with what she's wearing. I told her softly that her clothing was inappropriate as she looked underdressed and too casual for the occasion. She got mad at me and said that I shouldn't be telling her what to wear and that she's a grown adult who can decide what she wants to wear. So I told her that she could stay at home and wear what she likes, but a dress code had to be followed for this business dinner. She yelled at me, saying I was controlling and that it was her choice to wear whatever she liked. I replied, saying that it's her choice to wear what she wants and it's my choice whether to take her to dinner or not. So she went into her room and got changed into the evening gown. When we got back, she went to sleep in the guest room and hasn't spoken to me since. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. There's a difference between dictating what someone wears and going to an event with an explicit or implied dress code, especially given it's your business dinner. Given just how out of nowhere unreasonable the wife is coming off in this post, I have to wonder if there's a lot more to this story. This feels like an iceberg issue. Not the idiot. Dress codes are a real thing for work functions. My company does annual formal events, and I know many married men who leave their wives at home and come alone because their wife doesn't want to dress for the function. And yes, they did bring them the first time just for the wife to make a fool of themselves and embarrass them in front of the boss. I see it as unsupportive of your spouse's career choices by disrespecting the company he works for. It's okay not to like your spouse's career choices, but it's not okay to show it at company functions. I say save your opinion for home and social media. She's right that she can wear what she wants in her own home. She's embarrassingly immature. First, she doesn't dress reasonably, then throws a tantrum, and now she's pouting and playing the idiotic silent treatment game. Honestly, it's hard to believe a grown adult acts this way. This is the kind of crap I expect from a teen. You would have been right to leave her at home, although it might have been a fitting punishment to bring her in what she had on and let her be the one slob in a room full of real adults. I doubt she would have been popular. Due to my religion, I'm Indian living in America. I, female 21, don't eat beef. I only eat chicken because I've never liked any other meats. I can't stand to see someone eat beef, so I never put myself in a situation where I have to witness that. My boyfriend, 22, is very nice about this and restrains from eating beef when I'm around. His sister, 25, came for a surprise visit a couple of months back and wanted to go out for a steak dinner. My boyfriend refused because I was over at his house. I had suggested they both go and I can order myself a pizza. My boyfriend didn't want to go without me since we only got to spend around 2 days a week with each other. We ended up going to Burger King and his sister was mad at me because she thought I was trying to turn him vegan or something. Cue to a couple of days back, my boyfriend's mom invited us to dinner so he could introduce me to his family. His sister was also in town. My boyfriend told his mum to make chicken and she agreed. I was very nervous about meeting his family, and because I have horrible anxiety, I don't like talking to strangers, so it takes me a while to get comfortable around new people. Initially, it was a little awkward since I would only answer questions his parents asked me, and after some jokes and teasing, I finally felt comfortable. When we all sat down to have dinner, his mum brought out my plate mentioning I was the only one eating chicken. I was confused since I thought she would be cooking chicken for everyone. The dish looks like one of those ready-to-eat microwave meals, but I didn't care because I didn't expect his mum to cook 2 separate meals. She brings out everyone else's plates, and it turns out my boyfriend's sister had asked her to make braised beef. I didn't want to be rude, but at the same time I didn't want to sit there and watch them eat beef. So I politely excused myself from the table and went to sit in the living room with my plate. My boyfriend came out to talk to me, and I was trying to tell him that it's fine, everyone can have dinner, and then we can continue to talk afterward. His sister comes storming out of the dining room, fuming about how I ruined such a nice dinner and I was being an idiot for not letting her brother eat his food, which, by the way, I never said he couldn't eat his dinner. She called me many names and said I insulted her parents by walking out from the dinner table and that her brother deserved to be with someone who lets him eat whatever he wanted to. She ended her rant by saying to my boyfriend, "You should have known better than to date an Indian." I was practically crying at this point because I felt responsible for ruining their dinner. Finally, my boyfriend told his sister off and we left. His parents never even came out of the dining room to say goodbye. Edit. I can't watch people eat beef because the smell is very off-putting to me. So long as I'm not in super close proximity with someone eating beef, I'm okay. I only moved to the States about 3 years back, half of which was spent in quarantine, so I haven't had to deal with too many situations like this. I'm trying to get used to it to avoid anything in the future. Everyone's the idiot here, the sister and you. His sister is the worst. She is awful and probably pulled this stunt on purpose. That being said, OP, you need to find a better way to cope. You are alienating people with your behavior. What you did was super rude. To go to someone's home as a guest and then take your plate to another room because you can't stand to watch them eat is beyond the pale rude. What if you were at a work lunch and someone orders a steak, or even with just friends? No one likes to be shamed for just eating their food. What you did shamed them. That's why they didn't come out to say goodbye to you. You embarrassed them when they were hosting you. Boyfriend's parents invited OP over with the express purpose of getting to know her. Knowing that the one thing OP could not eat was beef, they decided to make beef the main dish. Wow, wow, wow. Just plop a microwave dish on OP's plate. That's what getting to know OP was worth. Boyfriend's mom could teach a masterclass on how to make clear that someone is unwelcome and unimportant all at once. Parents are also chill with their daughters directing insults at their guests in their home. I didn't even try to apologize or tell her it wasn't okay, just let it sit like the rotting carcass of their honor, stinking up the place. There is no world where OP is the idiot faced with this. Update. I mustered up the courage to call his mom and apologize. I told her it was rude of me to walk away after explaining why I couldn't stand the smell and said sorry that she had to cook 2 meals. She was very nice about it. She mentioned that she only cooked the beef and bought a microwavable chicken dinner because she didn't have time to cook 2 meals. His mum also apologized for making beef. It turns out my boyfriend had told her to cook chicken because I couldn't eat beef due to my religious beliefs, so she was planning on cooking chicken for everyone, but his sister asked for beef. I've been invited to dinner again, and this time we'll all be eating chicken and my boyfriend's sister won't be there.